What's going on, guys? It's Simo. So today I'm bringing to you a guide on how to build a going second deck. Now I'm not going to tell you exactly how to build that deck because there's way too many variables for me to go over in terms of archetype selection, deck choice, card choice, whatever the meta's looking like at any given time. It's impossible for me to cover all that and be able to give you exact step-by-step instructions on how to build that deck. However, what I can do is I can give you guys a lot of recommendations as to why you might want to build a going second deck, as well as a nice list of going second cards that you can incorporate into your strategy to help see a higher degree of success. But before we get into it, I wanted to let you guys know that we have Pro Play Tour Las Vegas coming up on December 15th. This is awesome because there's a regional sanctioned by Konami on the 14th at the exact same venue on the exact same weekend. So you get two events in that weekend, and that's pretty cool. Our event is a $2,000 cash prize pool event, only 20 bucks to enter. If you get your invite, you're invited to the $10,000 prize pool invitational event taking place in January. And I'll of course be there doing live stream commentary coverage for the event. So links in the description if you want to pre-register, and I hope to see you guys there. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. Now the first thing that entices players about building a going second deck is that it eliminates the variance of the die roll when you're determining who goes first or second. A lot of players, especially those who build a going first deck, really hope that in some cases they can win their die rolls, and over the course of an 8, 9, 10, 11 round tournament, you gotta get lucky to some degree if your deck is solely focused on going first and has a weaker time going second if you were to happen to lose that die roll. But what's so nice is that if you're playing a going second deck, especially when a majority of the player base is playing going first decks, you can almost guarantee that you're always going to get to go second, and that's good for a lot of reasons, because by eliminating that variant, you get to build your deck to do exactly what it does, because the issue is when you're looking at it from the perspective of the going first player, they have to still build their deck to some degree, knowing that they're going to lose some dice rolls and knowing that they're not always going to get to go first. But going second players don't have to worry about that as much. There are going to be some instances where they go up against a mirror match, for instance, or someone else who wants to go second, but compared to going first players, they can build their deck more solidly for going second, and that just gives them a more overall consistent strategy. The second reason why players like going second is because they get to draw a card at the start of their turn, whereas if you went first, you do not. And from a probability perspective, this matters a lot because it ups those percentages and kind of just boosts your overall consistency as a whole. Take for instance, if you were playing a 40 card deck and you're trying to draw one of a 3 of in your opening 5 card hand, well, you've got about a 34% chance to see that specific card. However, if you're planning on going second, you get to draw that 6th card. That 34% now becomes a 39%, and that 5% may seem rather marginal, but again, over the course of these longer tournaments that go multiple rounds, you're gonna see that 5% add up, and overall you're gonna see a more consistent outlook in your strategy because you get to start with that 6th card. That's another reason that people really prefer to go second. The third advantage of going second is that you get the very first battle phase of the entire game, and in some instances, kind of the only battle phase, because a lot of these going second strategies focus on having some sort of OTK mechanism, so that way after they break the opponent's board, they can swing in for over 8,000 damage, end the game right then and there, and then there is no mid game, there is no late game. You just scoop up, go to game 2, and it's just as easy as that. There's a lot of different ways you can go about doing this. It really does depend on the type of deck that you're playing, but if your deck can focus on making rank 4s rather easily, a card like Utopia Double might be what you're looking for, but I think a more traditional option, an option that a lot of players like to employ, is Borrelsword Dragon, because typically once you have all your monsters, after doing their job of breaking the opponent's board, you just link them all up into Borrelsword Dragon. If you have another monster that has a reasonable amount of attack power, you can usually just hit in for 8,000 in its own right, and then you just won that game, and that's why going second can be so beneficial. Having access to that battle phase not only means you have the potential to OTK, but you get the first opportunity to generate advantage with your monsters by just attacking over them. Remember, attacking is a form of card advantage, because if you can destroy your opponent's monsters in battle, you're removing their cards while maintaining your own, and that's going to help progress your game state further while taking your opponents away and pushing them further back. So having that battle phase can be absolutely critical. Now, I just mentioned breaking the opponent's board, but an advantage of going second is that there is a plethora of incredibly powerful cards that we can put in our main deck that most players won't have the ability to do, because if you're going first, a lot of these going second specific cards are going to most likely be in players' side decks because that's not what their deck is aiming to do. But since we're we're opting to go second, we get to incorporate these cards into our main deck, and that gives us a significant advantage when we can control the outcome of whether or not we go first or second. So let's start with something like hand traps, right? Hand traps are pretty good going second, but they're also pretty okay going first, right? Because whether you're going first or second, hand traps are pretty much always going to be applicable in some instance. Kind of the same thing goes for a card like Nibiru, I would say. I feel like those cards, you know, whether you're going first or second, you can feel pretty comfortable putting those cards in your deck, but those aren't the cards I want to focus on. I want to focus on the heavy hitting going second cards, like let's say Dino Wrestler Pankratops. Pankratops is incredible because not only is it a 2600 body that you get to special summon for free, assuming your opponent has a monster, which if you're going second, they should, but also if the Pankratops gets threatened, you can just tribute it off and destroy one of your opponent's cards. So not only can it outclass most of your opponent's monsters in battle, if it ever were to be threatened, you tribute it off and pop another card for its troubles. So in a lot of cases, you get to 2-for-1 your opponent with Pankratops, and that is just insane card value. You also have cards like the Kaijus. The Kaijus, if you're going first, are terrible because they don't do anything, but if you're going second, they're very good at getting around cards that have a lot of built-in protection, you know, being protected from card effects or being destroyed by battle or by card effects or being targeted. Anything like that, you can just tribute over it and you don't have to worry about it. Another package you can include is the Destrudo and Mermare package. What's nice about this is that with Destrudo, you can turn any of your level 6 or lowers into a basically a Yazi. Yazi can then pop itself, summon Mermare, you get 3 tokens, and from there, not only can you destroy up to like 2 cards in itself, a third if you count the Yazi, but then you can also make Boral Sword Dragon in addition to that, and usually OTK your opponent from there. And going first, you don't really want to incorporate a package like this because it doesn't do a lot for you, but going second, knowing that you have this at your disposal, it is absolutely incredible. Let's talk about spell cards. Shaddoll Fusion is actually one of the most ridiculous cards going second if your opponent ends on a monster that was special summoned from the extra deck, which in a lot of instances in modern Yu-Gi-Oh, unless you're going up against a rogue deck, most decks typically do. And Shaddoll Fusion by itself can generate so much advantage because you not only get the monster that it's summoned, you get to like pop something with Shaddoll Dragon, you can draw a card with Shaddoll Beast. If you're playing a dark oriented deck, you can get some value off sending those monsters to the graveyard as well. Like Shaddoll Fusion has absolutely crazy capabilities and is definitely a very strong going second card. Let's also talk about Mind Control. Mind Control honestly is one of the most absurd cards at the moment because of the fact it's not once per turn. You get to steal your opponent's monsters to use them for whatever you wish, and if it's a Link monster, that means you can Link climb a lot easier. If it's a Link 2 or a Link 3 that your opponent just happens to stay on the field, Mind Control can bait a lot of your opponent's outs because whatever form of interaction they may have, Mind Control is probably going to thwart it, so it's going to force some sort of negation, and because it's not once per turn, if you open multiple copies, you still feel pretty good because then you can just drop a second one and continue where you left off. Mind Control is one of the strongest going second tools, and it's definitely something you should most likely incorporate. There's also Super Polymerization. Super Polymerization is insane, and for some reason, it's still at 3. You can just, at the cost of discarding a single card, eat up your opponent's board, get a monster for your troubles, which is a big beater, or just link it off and do whatever plays you want, because if you resolve a Super Poly against your opponent, in most instances, you should be able to take over the game from that position. It is a little bit meta dependent, but at the current time of recording this video, Super Poly's pretty damn good. There's also cards like Mystic Mind, which is amazing because if your opponent has monsters, you can just lock down any monster effects that they may have, not even just on the field, but in the hand, in the graveyard, anything like that. Mystic Mind will lock it all down. You can do all of your plays under Mystic Mind and feel pretty good and probably take full control of the game from that point. And then there's also the good old board wipes like Raigeki and Dark Hole. Again, these are highly meta specific because at the current moment, these cards are not good at all because so many cards have protection from destruction, but in the right metagame, being able to main deck board wipes like this, which we saw not too long ago in something like Zodiac format, is a pretty good option. If you notice there's a lot of back row that you need to clean up, Twin Twister and Cosmic Cyclone can be amazing tools for that. A lot of players will be side decking these, but because you're choosing to go second, again, it is metagame dependent, but you'll have these in your main deck to be able to clean up any back row that you see necessary. And probably the strongest trap card for going second, and one of the big payoffs for opting to go second, is Evenly Matched. As soon as your opponent hears the words end of battle phase, their heart is going to sink at the thought of losing their entire board. If you bait out any negations that you see your opponent may have, and then you go to the battle phase, drop that Evenly Matched, they may lose their entire board, and you get to do everything on your turn completely unimpeded. repeated. Now, I will say that you will have an uphill battle going second because you have to play through your opponent's threats. In a lot of instances, most decks can establish one, if not multiple pieces of disruption that you'll have to play through on your turn. So it is vital that you understand how the top meta decks function, the boards that they typically end on when they go first, and that way you can choose to build your deck in such a way that you have a game plan for knowing exactly what to do when you're faced with any specific boards. Like if you know Orcus is going to end on Masquerena plus an Orchestrated Babel, you know you have to play through that. If you know Salamangreat's going to end on a Roar and possibly a few hand traps, you know you're going to have to play through that. And so you're going to have to find the best going second cards for whatever the metagame is comprised of, so that way you can consistently play through these strategies and start to see tons of success. The last piece of advice I want to give you guys is when it comes to the side deck, because when you're going into a tournament, not a lot of people are expecting you to be playing a going second deck. You can actually rake up a lot of wins in game one rather easily because your opponent might be caught off guard, not anticipate you to be playing something like this, but then when you get into games 2 and 3, things are going to change drastically because not only is the card pool going to be different, but your opponent might make you go first. And that actually matters a lot since your deck is so heavily focused on going second. So you need to worry about using your side deck to alter the anatomy of your deck so that you can be prepared to go first or second if need be. You need to judge your opponent based off of if you think that they're going to make you go first, and if you do, you need to play a lot of haymaker cards that are good at going first, like some absolute blowout cards like maybe Artifact Sanctum in tandem with Artifact Scythe, maybe some other floodgates that might just definitely put a damper on their plays. There's some very good going first options, but you need to be prepared for your opponent forcing you to go first, because that can be one of the biggest weaknesses of playing a go second deck, but that's not the end all be all. Going second decks have seen tons of success over the past several years and are going to continue to do so. It's a developing metagame, and at any given point, if people see that going second is the right way to do things, people are going to do it, and all the cards that I mentioned in this video and all the advice that I provided to you, they're going to take advantage of that. So if it's something you're interested in doing, or maybe you want to change things up a bit, I hope this video helped you guys out. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think about any other advice you guys have for anyone who might be wanting to build a going second deck. I'd really love to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching the video. Be sure to like the video as always, subscribe to the channel for more amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content, and if you found this video helpful, consider supporting me on Patreon or becoming a YouTube channel member, because just by showing your support in any way that you can, you're investing in my ability to continue bringing you amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content. So thanks so much again, and we'll see you next time.